Unit 1. Types of business entities. Based on the Companies Act, a company is a legal entity which independently carries out a profitable activity on the market as its exclusive activity. Legal entity can be organized in one of the following forms: as a personal company, public company, limited partnership, economic interest grouping, or as capital companies, limited liability company, shareholding company, limited partnership with share capital and European limited liability company. Basic legal organizational forms of entrepreneurship in Croatia are: 1. Companies. 2. Craft and liberal profession. 3. Cooperative. Some of them are not intended to engage in profitable activities. Most of the companies in Croatia are established in the form of a limited liability company, DOO. For this form, also the majority of foreign investors decide. A common form is also a sole trader, ST, which is not a legal entity. A sole trader is a natural person who independently carries out a profitable activity on the market. Through this module we will focus on these two most common forms. Information on other forms of business entities are written in Annex 1.1. A sole trader, ST, is a business entity, but is not a legal entity. It is a natural person who performs a profitable activity on the market. His income shall be taxable as a personal income tax. A sole trader is a self-employed person who does not pay salaries and other bonuses to himself, which would otherwise belong to regular employees in other forms of business entities. However, he must join the compulsory insurance system and pay social security contributions. In this form of business, it is interesting to know that a sole trader can freely dispose of earnings and can transfer it to household consumption whenever necessary. However, for his business operations he is responsible with his entire assets, which in the event of bad business poses a risk of losing personal assets. Running a sole trader's activities are easy as it only requires the management of basic accounting and bookkeeping records and compliance with the rules that apply to the charging of services. Although the establishment of this business entity is simple and, in principle, there are no specific limitations for setting it up, however, certain persons who have a ban on professional activities cannot register business during the ban remains in force. This is the only limitation about registering this business entity in Croatia, but if someone has tax debt from previous business activities as a self-employed, after registering a new business entity, self-employed, all tax debt what are recorded under the OIB of that person will be automatically recorded in a new business of that natural person. Sole trader type of business is a good choice if the future business does not pose a risk to the loss of an entrepreneur's personal assets. It will have a lesser annual turnover, up to 300,000 HRK per year, or the activity will be simple, renting a property or intellectual activities. A sole trader who has no employees, and has less than 300,000 HRK of annual turnover from a business, can opt for flat rate taxation and is not required to keep accounting books. This is important both from the point of view of ease of doing business and from a tax perspective. Since this taxation is classified in few categories, it is useful to find out the limits for the flat rate taxation and how they are calculated. In the presented table, advantages and disadvantages of the status of a sole trader are described. Supplementary ST is a natural person who is regularly employed by another employer. He is therefore secured on a different basis, but it can carry out various profitable activities. This status enables that business activities are carried out legally and with very low mandatory costs. Establishment of complementary ST makes sense when a person performs smaller scope of business activities in addition to the regular employment, renting of real estate. Legal status, rights and duties of the complementary ST and full ST are the same. The main differences: person is employed by another employer. Supplementary ST pays a contribution for health and retirement insurance on earned income from supplementary activities. This type of ST is usually created by those who are not satisfied with work or earnings in the regular employment, or are interested in entrepreneurship and want to start their own business without great risk. Supplementary ST is the most appropriate business form for someone who is, for example, renting a real estate. By registering supplementary ST, in most cases he is taxed lower than if he is renting the same real estate as a natural person without the supplementary ST status. Entrepreneur can register supplementary ST if does not conflict with the employment contract regulations concluded with his employer. Limited Liability Company, DOO or Limited, is a legal entity whose founding capital consists of the founder's contributions. Founding capital must be at least 20,000 HRK, as defined by the Companies Act. A limited liability company, DOO, may be set up by one or more natural or legal persons. The value of a founder's contributions may vary from one another, however, the lowest contribution is set at least 100 HRK. Contribution can be in cash or provided as an actual input or actual takeover, for example investment in the form of real estate, movable property, rights, business or part of a business. Unlike ST, founders for business activities are not liable with all their assets, but only with the capital of the company. Among the founders of a limited liability company, there must be at least one shareholder and at least one managing director, for neither is compulsory to be Croatian national and ought to reside in Croatia. Shareholder and managing director may be the same person. Relations among founders are set up by the Founding Act. Establishment of DOO is very safe from the point of view of protection of personal property. This is very important when there is more than one founder, and the wrong business moves of the influential ones harm everyone. In the case of a one-person company, it is worthwhile to evaluate all the effects of different business form and to decide whether a more appropriate is ST or DOO. Take a look at the presented table in which the most important facts about ST and DOO are compared. You should have it in mind these advantages and disadvantages while you are supporting each individual potential investor.